Korra the worst avatar ever? Is Aang objectively better than her? Some people definitely think so. They say Korra ended the avatar cycle. She let all the spirits into the material world, and as we recently learned in the press release for the upcoming Earth Avatar series, she does something before her death that basically ends the whole world, obliterating all 4 nations. That is a crazy list of L's, one after the other, and on top of all of that, upon a rewatch, it seems like she's constantly losing fights in her own show. So I want to get to the bottom of this. Is Korra actually just a bum of an avatar? Did the writers completely set her up to fail? Or is this all just a bunch of goobers on the internet slandering her and spinning lies to prop up their agenda? I'm going to answer that today, going over each of the accusations against Korra, including adding up all of her win-loss record and comparing it to Aang. So drop a like, grab some fire flakes to snack on, and strap in. The first major accusation against Korra is that she lost to Amon, letting him take away her bending and nearly overthrow Republic City. And this is fairly accurate. The first time Korra fought Amon, she got her ass kicked and ran away with her tail between her legs. The second time, he beat her in front of a giant crowd of onlooking equalists, and even sapped all 3 elements she had mastered at the time: water, earth, and fire. Even though she went into that fight with knowledge of Amon's true identity, both as Noatak and a bloodbender, she still got wrung out, completely unable to convince the crowd of the truth. Now, she did clutch up at the very last moment and figure out airbending, just in time to save Mako, blasting Amon out of the building, but she did not win the fight. Amon's mask and makeup came off and he retreated, only to be later killed by his brother Tarlok. And if that wasn't bad enough, Korra had to be bailed out of this whole mess by Aang, who returned her lost elements through some spirit bending. So yeah, Korra's first outing does not reflect positively on her. In Book 2, it's frequently cited that Korra ended the Avatar cycle, her biggest failure. Off the top, this is objectively untrue, or at least it's not worded correctly. If she really did end the Avatar cycle, then she would no longer be able to bend the 4 elements and wouldn't get reincarnated after her death. What actually happened is that she lost her connection to all of her previous lives, when Rava was separated from her. This was a huge deal. She and all future avatars lost out on 10,000 years of accumulated wisdom, and 10,000 years of accumulated bending skill too. All that mastery and technique from Wan, Yang Chen, Kuruk, Kyoshi, Roku, and Aang. Dust in the wind. The Avatar state still makes her stronger, but as we'll see here pretty soon, this was a major debuff, and will have some crazy ramifications on the future of the Avatar world. Now, it wasn't Korra's decision to lose these past lives. Unalaq and Vaatu stole them in an attempt to end the era of the Avatar, but Vaatu only got out because Korra hard fumbled at basically every opportunity. She was the one who opened the spirit portals for Unalaq, which led to the Water Tribe Civil War. And what's crazy is, everyone in her life told her not to listen to Unalaq. Her dad, her friends, her boyfriend, even Tenzin. She ignored all of them and blindly trusted the most obviously evil man in existence. The giant battle during Harmonic Convergence only happened because Korra was a dumbass at every possible opportunity. And worst of all, now because he's not sealed, future avatars will have to deal with Vaatu, slowly growing inside the spirit of Rava, meaning we might get more evil avatars from here on out. That is basically a Category 5 failure. Following right up on that, Korra then decided not to close the spirit portals, so the Avatar would no longer serve as the bridge between the 2 worlds, as both species would now freely cross between the 2 spaces. This was a wild choice, man. It was Vaatu himself who claimed to have brought spirits and humans together in the first place. I get why so many people say this was a giant screw-up. Consider monsters like Ko the Face Stealer, who are now free to prance about the material world completely unabated. And seemingly nice ones, like the Ai spirit that befriended Avatar Wan. He can just pass through a human body and permanently disfigure them into a half-animal freak forever. So, Korra unleashed these uncontrollable, inhuman monstrosities onto the world to destroy infrastructure and people's lives, all on a whim. And her solution for the planet was basically, IDK, figure it out. Now, I will say there is a huge caveat to this one. An unintended consequence of opening the spirit portals was the resurgence and return of the air nomads. Something about the influx of spiritual energy into the material world caused a shift in the chi of countless non-benders, leading to a new race of airbenders, which Korra then made her mission to gather together under Tenzin's tutelage and teach the lost ways of the air nomads of old. This was a huge dub. It basically reversed the greatest failure of Aang's time as the Avatar. Korra didn't do it on purpose, but it was a direct result of her actions, so she gets the credit. Unfortunately, this was also around the time she fought Zahir. And yeah, the Red Lotus kicked her ass a bunch. Specifically, she failed to stop them several times throughout the season and was eventually captured and poisoned. She did survive, just barely, and it required the help of the new Air Nation to stop Zahir and Su Yin to pull the mercury out of her blood. She definitely would have lost without their help. But she did survive, technically thwarting Zahir's plan. This felt like a brutal loss, but at the end it worked out as a win simply because she managed to not bite it. But a dub is a dub. And frankly, Korra needs it because her next big bad just dog-walked her, dude. Kuvira was a different animal. She 1v1'd Korra in front of everyone and straight up embarrassed her. Even after training with Toph and removing the last of the poison from her system, Korra still couldn't use the Avatar state correctly. She lost to Kuvira and let Zhaofu, the Metal City, be taken over by the unified Earth Empire. It was the last major stronghold other than Republic City, and Korra completely whiffed it. She had to be saved through a cheap shot by Opal and Jinora. I can't stress enough, this was like a career-ending loss, negative 10 billion aura points. And finally, because it seemed to be a hobby for her at this point, Korra opened yet another spirit portal, this time right in the center of the densely populated Republic City, basically nuking a city block in the process and opening up another hole for demons, monsters, Pokemon, spirits to come crawling through. Okay, I'm being pretty harsh here. This one was not her fault. Kuvira was using a spirit laser from her giant mech, and Korra needed to stop it somehow, or the energy would have likely destroyed the whole city. Plus, she figured out she could do this with spirit bending on the spot, which was actually pretty clutch. Now, this never would have happened if she had stopped Kuvira at Zhaofu earlier, but I'll let her keep the dub on this one. You'd think that would be the end of it, since, the show is over, but there's one more accusation against Korra we do need to talk about. In the upcoming series, Avatar 7 Havens, we learn that the world was devastated by a cataclysm during Korra's time as Avatar, which leads to the end of the four nations as we know them. Natural disasters and roaming spirits make most of the world uninhabitable. That seems like a gigantic L. It wasn't enough that Korra lost all the previous avatars and is no longer the bridge between worlds. Her actions ended all four nations? She made the Avatar into a symbol of destruction instead of a symbol of peace? I want very badly to slap a giant L on her forehead here, but we just don't know yet. We don't have any context for the cataclysm, what caused it, or what role Korra played in it. Maybe Varric built a new spirit weapon that exploded and caused a fallout, and Korra wasn't even in that part of the world to stop it. We have no idea. As funny as it is to see all the Korra slander, people calling her the worst Avatar ever, we just can't include this in the discussion yet, not until we get some context. Now, before we tally up all the accusations, the last thing I want to address is the win-loss record for both Avatars, because even outside stuff like the air nomads being destroyed, or the past lives of the Avatars being lost, it feels like Korra straight up loses more simple combat encounters than Aang did. I went back through both series and counted every instance that could be counted as a fight. There were some chases, traps, escapes, but I tried to include anything that was a direct confrontation with an antagonist that includes some bending action. Aang stopping a volcano from destroying a town is awesome, but it's not a fight. With the numbers in front of me, the first thing that sticks out to me, despite the fact that there are 9 more episodes in Avatar than in Korra, Aang only took part in about 30 fights, while Korra fought 40. That makes sense, I guess. Korra is much more hot-headed and confrontational, while Aang was more of a pacifist, and his story was about going on a journey instead of toppling bad guys. When we dig into these numbers, yeah, it makes sense that Korra feels like a loser. She ties approximately 5 of her fights, wins 22, and loses 13. That might sound pretty good, but Aang won 20 of his 30 fights with 5 ties and only 5 losses. He has an incredible 4-to-1 win-loss ratio, while Korra is only at 1.7-to-1. And I think maybe even more important than that, Aang has the advantage of only fighting one big bad, Fire Lord Ozai. The two clashed one time in the finale, and Aang won that bout decisively. Meanwhile, Korra fights all of her major antagonists multiple times, usually losing to each of them at least once, sometimes more than that. Tarlok, Aman, Unalaq, Unavatu, Zahir, Kuvira, they all beat Korra at some point. Sure, Aang loses to like Azula, and pretty spectacularly, but he frequently clowned on Zuko and Zhao. And if all that wasn't enough, Korra had full access to the Avatar state for more than half of her entire series, while Aang only gained full control literally after all of his fights were already over. So we've reached the final tally. Korra lost to Aman and was bailed out by Aang. She lost the wisdom of the past lives of the Avatars, let the spirits run wild in the material world, revived the Air Nation, survived the assassination attempt by the Red Lotus, lost to Kuvira and let the Earth Kingdom get conquered, opened a third spirit portal to save Republic City, and were inconclusive on whether she ended the Four Nations, and lastly, she has an abysmal win-loss record. That comes out to 5 big L's, 3 dubs, and a worldwide cataclysm we are stubbornly choosing to remain neutral on. Korra pretty definitively has more losses than wins, both across her career and compared to Aang's tenure as Avatar. Now I know a bunch of comments are going to tell me why Korra lost all these fights. She was traumatized, or unprepared, or there were circumstances outside of her control, and you're probably right about all those things. But a win is a win and a loss is a loss, and as a viewer, we can have all of that context, and it won't matter to how we feel seeing our protagonist lose over and over again. And you have to consider, Aang also had a terrible circumstance. He was 5 years younger than Korra and just suffered through an entire genocide. At the end of the day, the writers are the ones responsible, and they chose to dish out a hot plate of L's to Avatar Korra. Stay frosty.